Hello, everybody, and today we're going to talk about how Republicans majorly overperformed in the Senate. This is something that I'm interested in talking about because this is going to give us implications for how I'm going to have to be predicting Senate elections in the future. I do admit I did get most of the toss-up races correct, except for Susan Collins in Maine and Mark Kelly in Arizona. Um, I don't know if Arizona will tilt back red. It could in 2022. It is a red wave year, but um, it does look like Democrats now have pretty much have a majority in that state. So unless there's very low Democrat turnout, Republicans are probably not going to be winning elections there that often in the future. But what I'm interested in is taking a look at the how the polls reflected each of these states' results. So what I'm going to do is, oh wait, yeah, let's just pull this map up. And let's go to the RCP Senate map, and I'm going to go through all of the toss-up races. But the first things that I'm going to go through are the toss-up races that were ridiculously blown out of proportion. And there are mainly two important ones that I want to talk about that I honestly don't know how the pollsters got it this wrong. Part of me honestly is saying that something had to be going on with the pollsters, but I just don't know how they could get these races wrong. So wrong, honestly. They were off by so much. So, Montana and South Carolina. South Carolina, let's take a look at the recent polls from this year and how they reflected. Okay, so the only somewhat close poll was the Graham plus 6. Every other poll within, I'm just going to put it in September. So we had a tie, Graham up 1, a tie, Graham up 3, Graham up 6. I mean, this was terrible. This poll was off by, you average it out, let's just say Graham is up 2 or 3, maybe 2 even. The poll was off by 8 points. And I think everybody really knew that this race wasn't competitive. Yet the pollsters obviously made it look like it sure was. I don't know. I don't think that they were purposefully uh, changing the polls, but there's really something that makes it a lot harder for people to make predictions and a lot harder for people to understand where the race is. So this is not letting me go back. So I'm just going to redo this. I don't know what's going on. But it's going to make it a lot harder for us to make predictions like me and like a lot of other prediction YouTube channels, which there are a lot of them. And I think it's going to be a lot harder in the future for this to happen. Okay, so the first state was South Carolina. Lindsey Graham ended up winning by over 200,000 votes, 250,000. So by all means, Lindsey Graham won in a pretty landslide election there. The other state, Montana. This state somehow was a toss-up. Daines won by double digits, still barely double digits, but double digits nonetheless. Obviously decreasing. Steve Bullock was a popular governor. However, just take a look at the polls. Just look at all of them, aside from this Emerson poll and the New York Times poll, which is 2 out of, what is it? 2 out of 8. So, majority of the polls, 80% majority, I'm pretty sure. I don't know. Math isn't the best. Actually, maybe more like a 70%. But Bullock up 2, Daines up 1, tie, Daines up 1, Daines up 3, Bullock up 1. Daines won by 10 points. This was not by any means a toss-up state. This was likely Republican. These should be likely Republican states. These should not have been toss-up states. And it's kind of sad to see what happened. So now I'm really not going to be focusing on Arizona and Colorado because they weren't really anything that is needed to talk about. Arizona I got wrong. That was kind of my upset prediction. I did get it wrong. And yeah, Mark Kelly won in Arizona. Obviously very popular. Even got more votes, I'm pretty sure, than Joe Biden. And we can look around. I'm also going to talk about New Mexico because that was a bit of a surprise, but let's continue to go through everything. So, what we're going to go through now. Okay. South Carolina, Montana, 2 states that were definitely not toss-ups, and the pollsters got wrong. I'm going to not go through Georgia, the 2 Georgia races, because I think I'm going to go through them. Or I'm going to make my Georgia predictions January 4th to January 5th, just for the sake of the prediction, but They'll probably maintain the same. I still think we're both Republicans are going to win. However, if my mind changes, I'll definitely be posting a video then. Okay, so let's take a look at North Carolina. Because there's a bunch of states, honestly, I think every toss-up state, almost every toss-up state, I think, I mean, actually everyone, when I'm going back to think about it now, overpredicted the Democrats. This is exactly what happened in 2016. This happened mostly in 2018 with a lot of the Senate races. When you look at Florida with Bill Nelson, this is really lagging for some reason. I don't understand. But you can look at, yeah, obviously Bill Nelson in Florida, um, and Marsha Blackburn in Tennessee, and Mike Braun in Indiana, and Josh Hawley in Missouri. You could just look through everything. Most of the polls had Democrats overestimated, and once again, the polls had the Democrats overestimated. Cal Cunningham lost this race. The polls were off by about 4 points for, let's see, 2.6 plus 1.8. It's a lot harder to do when it's like 4.2, 4.4 actually. It's a lot. Anyway, it's a lot harder to do when you're on video. But overperforming, Tom Tillis, incumbent, he gained by 0.1% from 2014. Nothing big to talk about. Pretty much the same margins. Won by a little bit more than Trump did, actually. But nonetheless, Tillis won. Tillis was expected to lose this seat, and so were a few other senators, which is a bit shocking. But anyway, North Carolina once again overpredicted, and this is something that you will find throughout essentially every single polling state in the United States Senate map. When you look at Montana, South Carolina, North Carolina, Iowa. We're going to get to Maine, by the way, because I have a lot to say about Maine, Michigan, Minnesota. I don't really remember the polls there. I didn't really focus on that as much. But the next day we're going to get to is Iowa. And I knew that Iowa was going to go to Joni Ernst. I honestly saw no way that a Democrat could win in Iowa at this point, especially with Trump on the ballot. Joni Ernst is pretty popular as the incumbent there. And I did think she'd probably win by maybe I overpredicted by around 7 to 8 points. She won by around 6.5 points. Nonetheless, the polls were underestimating Joni Ernst by 5 points. Even the Des Moines Register poll, which is the most accurate Maine poll, it does polls every year for Maine, like right before the election, had Ernst up 4. Ernst overperformed by 2.5. Now, I don't know what the cause for these polling errors are when they have Greenfield somehow up 4. Only essentially one poll was dead on with insider advantage, which is what people make fun of as like crazy Republican pollsters. And I'm just saying, when you have A+ pollsters, B+, even C pollsters, and then you have insider advantage, which is barely even well known as a polling organization, having better polls than all of these other organizations. It's something you have to think about. But yes, Ernst overperformed by 5 points. This is a state that Democrats are going to have a hard time winning in the future, especially now with the increased polarization of the country. This is causing many people to take sides essentially in politics. There's no more split ticket voting, maybe in the Northeast, but honestly nowhere else across the country. When you look at suburban women, obviously now favoring Democrats, and then you look at this industrial Midwest and rural farmers when they voted for Obama, definitely switching over to Trump and Republicans. When you look at these results, even in Minnesota, it is narrowing up. So, and when you look at suburban women, it's turning more Democrat. And when you look over down here in Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, Nevada, getting a little bit more Democrat, but definitely something that you can see the increased polarization and how each state is going to be going in the future. The only true states that I think people will be split ticket voting or not, or just voting based off of political ideology or based off of whatever they feel of a candidate, not based off of the letter that they have next to their name on the ballot, will probably be New Hampshire and Maine. Maybe, I honestly don't see any other state that happening in just these northeastern states, and the only two toss-up states are New Hampshire and Maine in the Northeast. Obviously, the Democrats did do well in New Hampshire this year. with in the federal level with um, the Jean Shaheen winning her Senate seat by very, very solid margins, 15 points, I think. Joe Biden winning New Hampshire pretty solidly. They have both House members in their state. However, in the state elections, um, Chris Sununu won by over 30 points. They now have a trifecta in the New Hampshire government. They have a complete New Hampshire Senate, and if you look at the state Senate, and a complete New Hampshire state House. So anyway, that's my take out of all of this, and Iowa obviously is staying with the Republicans as I see it. Same with North Carolina and Montana. Obviously, there are some people who can win. Even Steve Daines, who won the governorship and is the incoming governor, lost by double digits in the state that he won just 4 years ago. Anyway, now let's go right to. So we've gone through most of these states actually. We're going to be looking at these three states right here: Minnesota, Michigan, Maine. Three states that I think are showing some implications for the future, especially these two states, Minnesota and Michigan, which is what I'm going to go through first. And I'm going to go through the polls. Democrat overestimated here again. Gary Peters was said that he would win by 5.5 points, ended up winning by 1.5 if you round for both of them. So, overestimating by around 4 points against John James, who ran in 2018 against Debbie Stabenow. Obviously, that was more of a blue wave year, so Debbie Stabenow did a lot better. But just take a look. This was 2014. If you don't remember, 2014 was the year the Republicans took the Senate. This was supposed to be a red wave year, and it was a red wave year. Republicans did very, very good down ballot. They got the Senate back from Harry Reid in 2014. Mitch McConnell becoming the Senate Majority Leader, which is how the Senate has been since 2014. Peters in 2014 won by 13 points. 13 points 6 years ago. And when you look at the scope of American history, 6 years ago was like yesterday. It was not a long time ago. And he won by 13 points. 6 years later, in 2020, he wins by barely 1.5 points. 1.7 points. Barely wins a Senate race, which in a state that has been very largely Democrat. But if you see, and if you take a look at the trends, you can. It's very obvious that Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, they may have flipped back for the Democrats this election. I guarantee you, if Trump runs next election, I'm almost positive they will go Republican because that is the trend that they're on. I seriously don't see the Democrats holding it, especially against a candidate like Trump in 2024, 4 years later, with also increasing demographic changes where a lot of these African American communities are moving to the South, are moving to Texas, are moving to Georgia, and they're losing this state. And eventually, I do see Republicans probably winning pretty well in all of these states, having maybe 2 senators in Wisconsin in 8 years, 2 senators in Michigan, maybe 1, and Pennsylvania. Obviously, they have Pennsylvania is the popular Senator Tom Wolf, but yeah, I mean it is trending Republican. Just look at where Obama won it in 2012. Trump obviously made major gains in there. Now that was also due to Hillary Clinton's very, very high unfavorability rating. But even Joe Biden, who loves to talk about how he's from Pennsylvania, barely won the state. He won it by about a point this election. So that is something that Republicans need to develop a huge ground game in there, especially in incoming elections where there's not going to be mail-in voting and people are going to be voting in person. Anyway, this is a state that probably if John James ran for in 2024, he would get the Senate seat then. And I don't know what he has planned to do. If he's going to run a third time for the Senate, that may seem a little bit redundant. But obviously, we'll see what happens in that state. Now to Minnesota. Now, Minnesota hasn't been won by a Republican since Nixon in the 70s, and we can just take a look at the trends. Even from 2018, which I'll admit is a Democrat wave year, Smith won by 10 points. Tina Smith. Now her lead has been cut in half, literally, 10.6 to 5.3, against Jason Lewis, who isn't even the strongest candidate to run in Minnesota. he still made this race essentially a lean race. Now, the polls, obviously, this poll actually is a bit surprising, had it a bit closer in the end. Um, However, Smith did end up winning by around 5 points, but this is a state that is trending Republican. Just like Arizona and Georgia and Texas are trending Democrat, Minnesota and Wisconsin and Michigan and Pennsylvania are trending Republican. And I'm sorry if I must have said, I'm pretty sure Texas is trending Democrat. Anyway, Smith wins by 5.3. Still pretty significant margin, but come 2024, 2022, 2026, when she's up for re-election, it's going to be very hard for her to win. She may win, but it's going to be a lot harder for her to win, and definitely in the scope of history in America, I don't know how many more elections it's going to be, but this will soon fall into Republican control unless some major demographic shifts don't happen. Also, we're going to take a final look at the state that people got completely wrong and that the pollsters got completely wrong. And I talked a little bit about this in my election recap, where I kind of dissed on the pollsters a lot because the pollsters did a terrible job predicting the Senate race. Susan Collins in Maine. Now, I know Lisa Savage was on the ballot, which hurt Gideon. Still, Collins won the race. Would have won the race nonetheless if you gave all of Lisa Savage's voters to Sarah Gideon. When you look at the polls, which had to include Lisa Savage, Gideon was up 6, up 4, up 7, one with her up 1, not a single Collins up. But this probably, I'm just looking at it, averaging out to about getting up 5 points. Collins won by about, let's just call it 9, just for the sake of this, so I can do the easy math. So the polls were off by about 14 points. Take this poll. This poll was off by maybe 15 points, 14, 15 points. This one was off by 15, 16 points. It's just insane. I don't understand how you can get that wrong, aside from the fact that people were split ticket voting. Maybe this was due to Collins voting no on on Barrett, but I really don't think so. I think if she voted yes on Barrett, she still would have won this state by maybe 5 points. And I just think that this is something that the Northeast is just having done. They're split ticket voting. This is a Democrat state. Maine is a Democrat state. It is. We have to realize that Maine has more Democrats than Republicans, probably by 5-10%. Still, Susan Collins wins because Democrats voted for her over the Democrat Sarah Gideon. This is something that I'm gonna have to be taking a look at when I look at how states are going to be voting in the future. When we look at the 2022 Senate map, I'll just go back because this Senate race was pretty pathetic for the pollsters, and they should honestly do a self-evaluation on how to be predicting these polls in the future, because Illinois, where Dick Durbin was running, he won by 16 points, and that was a safe Democrat state. But in a state, in two states, in Montana and South Carolina, and Maine, but mostly South Carolina and Montana, where Republicans won by double digits, are considered toss-up races. That is something that seriously needs to be fixed with the RCP, and with 538 even more, because 538 is even worse. Merkley, geez, I didn't even know he was that close in 2008. Anyway, wins by 17 points. Still, Montana and South Carolina should have at least been likely Republican, because that is what they would have been characterized based off of the characterizations. But anyway, going back to 2022 Senate map, Arizona actually has another. They have. Let's see. When we go back, 2016 was, I think, they've had consecutive Senate races since 2016, and it's going to keep going until, I think, 2024. So 2016, John McCain ran and won. In 2018, Kyrsten Sinema ran. In 2020, John Kelly had to run. In 2022, John Kelly's going to have to run. In 2024, Kyrsten Sinema is also going to have to run for re-election. So, I mean, Arizona has had lots of races, but in 2022 going on, obviously, I think Mark Kelly will probably win that seat, even though it's supposed to be a Republican wave year. Probably by a tilt margin. He'll probably win by maybe 1%, 1.5%. Uh, but he'll still win the race. He'll be in the Senate until 2028 at least, and he'll be doing pretty good there. Um, and that's just the way we're gonna have to be looking at things. I thought maybe Martha McSally would pull it off. If Doug Ducey does decide to run in 2022, then Mark Kelly may have a harder job getting reelected to the Senate. But if they run another candidate like Martha McSally, then he'll probably be reelected. Republicans are going to need to figure out how to run better candidates because Democrats, although they do lose many of these races that are considered toss-up, have run very good candidates in the past with Montana and Steve Daines, and you look at um, Stacey Abrams in Georgia, and you look at Beto O'Rourke, who made the Texas race extremely close, and you look at Phil Bredesen and Claire McCaskill and Joe Donnelly making um, Senate races in pretty much Republican states competitive. That is something that uh, Republicans are going to have to look at because Republicans have to remember they can still win races in New Hampshire, in Michigan, in Minnesota, even in Arizona and Colorado and Nevada, and even in New Mexico when we look at the results here. This is not a solid Democrat state. Uh, Lujan won by 6 points against Mark Roscinetti. This was by no means a safe state. This is still a lean, maybe likely state for the Democrats, more lean. So when people are saying that New Mexico is trending blue very quickly, take a second step. Republicans can still win in these states. They honestly just need to run good candidates. And I mean, if they do run good candidates, Republicans can do very well across the country. If Democrats run good candidates, they can do very well as well across the country. If you take a look, they could re-win a seat in Wisconsin and Pennsylvania in 2022. Obviously, it's going to be harder given the dynamics of the election in 2020. But say it didn't happen, say they won, they would have 52, they would have 50, and that would get them to 50. And if they won both Georgia races, that would be 52. If they won one Florida race, that would get them to 53. One in North Carolina would be 54. One in Iowa would be 55. Winning back one in Maine would be 56. So they can do very good across the Senate. It's not like they're not popular. It's just Republicans are having a hard time running candidates, and Democrats still are having a hard time winning elections. But obviously, that could change in 2022 if Doug Ducey runs in Arizona, Chris Sununu runs in New Hampshire, Ron Johnson's obviously running for re-election. Tom Wolf, the popular governor of Pennsylvania, running for maybe, if he decides to run Pennsylvania, will probably win that race. Chuck Grassley, very popular in Ohio or Iowa, and Rob Portman, very popular in Ohio. States that we're all going to have to look at. Roy Blunt is retiring in North Carolina. Possibly Roy Moore would be running for the Senate in 2022. So there are a plethora of good candidates that both parties could be running and that both parties could be being very successful with in these Senate races to possibly get the majority. Anyway, this was just my evaluation of the 2020 Senate elections. Thank you guys for watching. If you disagree with any of the evaluations, please explain why in the comments. I'm very happy to get back to you and have a discussion with you about it. Anyway, stay tuned for more videos. I'm going to be making my Georgia race prediction. It is currently winter break for us, so I'm on a little bit of a break, and I may be posting more videos. I may go live during the Georgia Senate elections, just to talk about it. I'm probably not going to be live for 5 hours like I've seen some YouTubers do, but if anyone's interested, I might be doing that. And coming next year, we're going to be talking about 2021 Senate election, and I'm just going to be doing a preview because I always like doing previews at the end of my video. Is that Merrick Garland? That could be Merrick Garland. Anyway, whatever. Karl Rove, there you go. See, I know all these people. No, I'm just kidding. In 2021, Andrew Yang is looking like he's going to be running for the mayor of New York City. That is something that I think I'm very interested in. Obviously, Bill de Blasio is term limited after Michael Bloomberg changed the rule for him and then changed it back for everyone else. Bill de Blasio is term limited in New York. Andrew Yang looking for a spot in as the mayor. That'll be very interesting to see what happens there. But a lot of fun, interesting things happening in 2022, and it's going to be something that is going to be a reflection of how Americans approve or disapprove of Joe Biden's presidency in his first year. So, thank you guys for watching. I have a lot of great content coming for this channel. I hope you guys can enjoy and watch with me. Please subscribe. I really appreciate it. And we're going to be on to 2021, 2022, and then 2024, where it's going to be a lot of fun. So, thank you for watching. Have a nice day, and stay tuned for more videos.